All right, let's dive in. We've all heard the story of the Ramseys case, right? Or at least the version we think we know. But what if I told you the most important witness wasn't a person at all, but the house itself? See, in this breakdown, we're not just going to rehash the old timeline. No, we're going to dig deeper, really look past the headlines, and get into the logical gaps and psychological puzzles that are just sitting there, right under the surface. And that's really where this whole thing starts, with the Ramsey home. I mean, it's so much more than just a crime scene. You have to think of it as a character in the story. It's this huge 4-story stage where this picture-perfect family life just slammed head-on into a brutal and honestly an unthinkable reality. So let's start right there with the house itself. On the outside, it looked like a fortress, a symbol of safety and success. But what happens when you start to look at the hard facts? What does the actual evidence tell us about the idea of security versus the reality of what went down that night? And this right here, this is absolutely key. This is the family's entire worldview, all laid out. It's built on trust, on the idea that people are basically good. And that belief, that feeling of just total safety, it's not just a thought. It directly shaped how you act, how you live your life day to day. And boom, this is where that illusion just completely shatters. On one hand, you've got the mental fortress they lived in, this world of good people and total safety. But then you look at the reality, the cold, hard facts. The alarm system? Off. 7 windows open. A door unlocked. This place wasn't a fortress at all. It was basically an open house. Okay, so if we're talking about an intruder, this is the path they supposedly took. But let's really break this down. This isn't just some random window. It's tucked away in the basement, totally hidden from the street, hidden from the neighbors. To even know about this spot, let alone use it, well, that takes some serious inside knowledge of the layout. You'd have to be confident, and you'd have to know it was an easy target. This doesn't scream random break-in, does it? It points to something much more specific. And this leads us to what I think is one of the biggest logical knots in the whole intruder theory. It's a total paradox that's right at the center of this case. How can you know so much about the how, but absolutely nothing about the who? I mean, just think about this for a second. For the intruder theory to work, you have to believe someone was watching this family, like really watching them, studying their routines, the layout of their house, its weak spots. But at the same time, the family says they felt nothing. No weird cars, no strange phone calls, not a single creepy vibe. Logically, how can both of those things be true at the same time? It doesn't track. Well, this brings us to a really fascinating psychological idea called defensive omniscience. It's a mouthful, I know, but stick with me. It's basically when a person stops acting like a victim and starts acting like an expert analyst of their own case. They can tell you every single thing the police did wrong, every piece of evidence they missed. But when you ask for details that could actually solve the crime, suddenly they know nothing. It's a brilliant way to control the story without getting caught in it. Now, on the complete flip side of that, you have what investigators expect to see from innocent families. They call it cooperative desperation, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's this raw, overwhelming, desperate need to find out what happened. They'll do anything, talk to anyone, give you any piece of information, no matter how it makes them look. Their only priority is the truth, not protecting themselves. And you can really see the difference laid out here. It's night and day, really. On one side, with cooperative desperation, the goal is finding the truth. The police are your allies. You give them everything you've got, no filter. But with defensive omniscience, the goal is to control the story. Suddenly, the police aren't partners, they're the enemy, and every single piece of information gets run through a team of lawyers first. Okay, so let's bring all this psychology stuff back to the house itself. Because the physical layout of that home wasn't just a backdrop to the tragedy. No, its very design created the perfect opportunity for any scenario to play out, and it actually enabled the exact kind of behaviors we've been talking about. The sheer size of this house is just critical. We're talking about a sprawling 4-story place that was so compartmentalized, sound just didn't travel. Investigators actually called it a house of zones of opportunity. Basically, entire events could happen on one floor in almost complete silence, and someone sleeping on another floor would have absolutely no idea. And here's the really crucial point. The architecture of the house doesn't prove anything. It's completely neutral. See, the house was big enough for an intruder to move around without waking the family. But it was also big enough for a family member to move around without waking other family members. The house itself provided the perfect cover no matter who needed it. And when you start layering all these other factors on top of the house's layout, well, you get a recipe for a perfect storm. Think about it. Everyone's exhausted from Christmas. They're in a deep sleep. You've got the acoustics of the house, add in a family culture where kids had a lot of independence, plus a relaxed vibe because they were about to go on vacation. All of it together created this perfect little window of incredibly low awareness. It was just sitting there, waiting for someone to take advantage. Okay, now we're going to get into what is, for my money, one of the most telling parts of this entire story. We're talking about the immediate aftermath and the unbelievably fast switch to a full-on defensive legal fortress. Just look at this timeline. The 911 call is made at 5:52 a.m. Cops arrive just a few minutes later, but by 8 a.m., just 2 hours later, an attorney is already on the scene, shutting down access to the family. And get this is before the police had even formally asked to interview them. This isn't reacting to something the police did. This is getting ahead of the investigation to control it from the jump. And you just have to ask the question, right? If you've done nothing wrong, what are you so afraid the investigation is going to find? That immediate impulse to lawyer up, it comes from a place of fear. But fear of what? See, an innocent person is usually afraid the real killer is still out there. A guilty person, they're afraid of the investigation. You know, from a criminologist's point of view, these actions follow a pretty standard playbook. It's almost like a survival guide. Step 1, lock down the flow of information immediately. Step 2, stop seeing the police as partners and start treating them like the enemy. Step 3 is a bit more subtle. You paint your refusal to cooperate as you standing up to persecution. And finally, step 4, you create this whole other story about how incompetent the police are. It's an incredibly effective way to defend yourself. So let's just recap for a second. We've gone from the physical layout of the house, the stage itself, to the psychological layout of the response. We've looked at the paradoxes, the opportunities, and you can see how the physical space made the psychological defense possible. It's like one enabled the other, and together they created this environment where the truth just got buried. And really, that's the thought I want to leave you with. Because maybe, just maybe, the real question here isn't what happened. Maybe that's even a distraction. The real insight comes when we start asking, why? Why was the house left so vulnerable? Why was the immediate reaction to build a fortress of lawyers? Why do all these logical paradoxes exist in the first place? When you start digging into the why, you get past the facts of the case and you start to uncover some really profound truths about human nature, about self-preservation, and what any of us might be capable of when our entire world is about to collapse.